$60 billion. That's what Elon Musk just paid for the app you write code in. On June 16, SpaceX, the company Musk merged XAI into, bought Cursor outright. The editor a million developers open every morning. Every repo you touched in it, and every prompt, every line you accepted. That's what the $60 billion was for. Not the app, but everything you ever typed into it. You weren't the customer. Your work was the price. I've tracked every move in the coding tool area on this channel for months. This is yet the one that ends independent tool era. By the end, you'll know exactly what Musk bought, the real reason Cursor had to sell, and how to set up Claude Code so you can walk away from any tool anytime, like tonight. Open Cursor tomorrow morning. Same editor, same shortcuts, same autocomplete, finishing your functions. One thing changed. The company reading every keystroke. For 2 years, you typed your private code into Cursor. Your prompts, your fixes, the way you think through a problem at 2 a.m. But on June 16, Elon Musk's SpaceX bought all of it for $60 billion in all stock, no cash. Not for the software. The software is a text editor with good autocomplete. He bought the behavior of a million developers, half of the Fortune 500, showing his model how senior engineers actually work and think. Stay with me. At the end, I'm handing you the exact setup that makes this impossible to do to you again. A model portability config. You can build inside Claude Code in about 15 minutes. That survives any model getting pulled for any reason or any tool getting bought. So here's the threat. The tool you trusted to be neutral was quietly an intake pipeline. You thought you were using the tool. The tool was actually using you. So stay with me because at the bottom, there's one thing Musk can't touch. 3 layers, then the answer. Let's start with the chips first. Musk owns Colossus, a supercomputer cluster in Memphis. Hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA chips in it. That is the compute. Now add Cursor, that's the app, and then the data, your code flowing through it every day. Add Grok, build XAI's own coding agent. That's the whole distribution. And they've been quietly also training a model together for months called Composer. It ships inside Cursor and inside Grok. Musk now basically owns every layer between the silicon and your commit. The chip, the model, the editor, the agent. And reports say that this week, they are also building Origin, a replacement for GitHub. So picture the whole chain, where your code is written, what writes it, and where it lives, all is owned by one company end to end. That's the threat. But the real story isn't what Musk bought. It's why Cursor sold. And that's the part nobody on the internet and your feed is telling you about. Everyone's covering this as Musk winning. Cursor didn't sell because it won. It sold because it was losing. Look at the numbers last June. Cursor held 41% of the AI coding market. By May, 26%. That's not growth. That's a slide. Then what happened in between was that Anthropic shipped Claude Code. The company that supplied Cursor's intelligence built its own editor and passed Cursor in revenue. Here's the part that matters the most for you. Cursor never owned a model. It rented them, OpenAI's, Anthropic's. Cursor built a beautiful storefront on top of someone else's engine. And the day your supplier decides to sell the same thing you sell, you're finished. They set your cost. They can cut you off. You're racing a competitor who's also your landlord, basically. That's the shift. Cursor didn't own its product. It rented the product and resold it with a nicer interface. Musk didn't buy a winner. He bought a tenant right before the eviction. Now hold that against your own job. If the value you ship sits on a model you don't control, if your edge is, I know how to prompt a tool, you're Cursor. And if a supplier cutting you off sounds pathetical, well, it already happened. We have 2 more basically data points that we're going to cover that prove this is a pattern. First one, Windsurf, which was another AI tooling startup, just like Cursor. When it went into acquisition talks, Anthropic cut off its AI API access. The intelligence its whole product ran on, gone, mid-deal. The second example actually happened Last week, the US government forced Anthropic to pull its two most powerful models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5, offline worldwide. Anthropic had 90 minutes notice, and then a deployed model for every customer vanished. That is the rule written twice in 3 months. Access is not ownership. The model you built on can be cut off by its owner or switched off by a government before your next stand-up. That is the threat. The whole industry now treats your tools as things that can be taken from you with no notice. Your disaster recovery plan covers the data center burning down. It does not cover the model getting a letter from the commerce department on a Friday afternoon. Which brings us to the question that matters for your career the most, not which tool is the best. You spent 3 years getting fast at cursor. No cursor shortcuts, master the prompt tricks, but that skill just became a liability for you. The tool can be bought, replaced, or pulled in a minute, but the skill that can be locked in is your judgment layer. The one thing you take with you no matter what tool you're using, and a setup that doesn't care which model or vendor is underneath it. So let me show you how to own that layer. Right now, your whole setup, your model, your rules, your prompts live inside Cursor. It's their app, not yours. The fix is to move everything into one file in your own project that you own. It's yours, and switching models is just one line with it. To start with, run Claude update. Inside your Claude code config, you define model routing in a single JSON block, provider, model ID, API key, all in one line. Then you can swap Anthropic for Google, swap Google for OpenAI, etc. The rest of your workflow doesn't move. Here's what that looks like. 3 providers, 1 config file. You change one line and your entire setup migrates. The editor you're typing in doesn't matter. The model underneath doesn't matter. What matters is that you doing and in charge of the routing. I recommend that you do this tonight before the next acquisition comes around. The second piece is harder to configure, but more valuable. Every line of code an AI writes for you still needs a human who knows what good looks like. Architecture decisions, trade-off judgment, the ability to look at generated code and say that's wrong before it ships to production. The developers who survive this consolidation aren't the ones who type fastest inside the tool. They're the ones who own their own judgment, and can swap the model underneath without breaking a sweat. If this changed how you think about the tools you're using today, that's what this channel is for. Subscribe and I'll keep tracking the moves that actually matters for your career, not just the headlines. And as a thank you, meet my dog Kaden, with zero AI anxiety and 100% job security. So you just saw Musk turn your code into his asset. Now watch your own employer do it with your keystrokes. Next.